All right, since we just mentioned the existence of something called doubling, let's spend some time and talk about what doubling is. Um, Doubling, as in to double something, is something that we have to do very often when we're working in these four voiced settings. Because our triads, unless you're working with the seventh chord, which you can but are not always, and you could say most of the time are not, our triads only have three notes, but we have four voices. So some note in this chord has to be doubled. For example, in this particular case here, the root is doubled. We have two different C's, right? And then an E and a G. So the root is being doubled by the tenor, or you could say is being doubled by the bass. But in this case, I would say the bass is doubled. It doesn't really matter. But what does matter is that the root of the chord is the note that's being doubled in this case. Okay? So there's a lot of rules for how to double something, how to decide what note gets doubled. So let's talk about, let's go over just kind of the general rules first, and then we'll look at an example in the next video. Okay, so rule number one about doubling. Never double the note that has an accidental on it or is a tendency note. So if you have a leading tone in a chord, don't double the leading tone. If there's a note that's kind of exceptionally dissonant, and we want that dissonance in the chord, but we don't want to emphasize it by doubling it, right? So let's say you're in a minor key and you've got that a leading tone in it, like in this case. Like if we were doing a four-voiced thing here, I would not want to double that A because it's a tendency tone going up to this B flat. It's a leading tone. That would not sound very good to double that note. I still want it there. I just don't want to double it. Okay, next rule. If you're in root position, if you're making a chord in root position, double the root. Pretty safe bet. So if we're in root position, that means that the root of the chord is in the bass. So the bass note is what's going to get doubled somewhere. It doesn't necessarily have to be in the tenor like this. You know, we could have a setting that's something like this. That kind of works. That actually works kind of well. So in this case, we're still obeying that rule. The root is the note that's doubled. We have two different C's. And then we have the G and the E. Okay, so if we're in root position, double the root. Okay, next rule. If you're in first position, meaning the third is in the bass, let's do one of those.